Hey, Seventh graders, Mr. Allard with another one of your flip lessons today. Today we're going to be talking about Shay's Rebellion, which is going to be a decisive moment to talk about the impact of the Articles of Confederation. You picked up it looks like a vocab foldable. Should be a fill in the blank style note. Should already be on page 61 of your interactive notebook. So, here we go. Alright, so the who. Pictures did not save, so sorry this is not going to have any pictures for today, but we'll do our best. Daniel Shay he was a former colonel in the American Revolution, the Continental Army, and he's going to lead a group of about 1,200 or so farmers during Shay's Rebellion. So the key things to remember here is, number one, Shay's Rebellion is a movement of farmers. All right, they organize, they come together, and they're trying to make some changes. And Daniel Shay was a former military guy. Many of these people were also veterans, and they had two big issues. One issue we'll talk about a little bit later, but the second issue is they're veterans and they're owed money from the government and they're not being paid. So they're farmers who are struggling with a struggling economy. They're also not getting paid from the struggling government, so it's kind of a double whammy for this group of people. So they decide to organize and kind of try to take action into their own hands. What did they do? Okay, so the farmers are going to kind of scatter themselves throughout the area, and they're going to go to city courts. And what they're trying to do at the city's courts is they're trying to stop the court from coming into session. Overall, what is happening is farmers are struggling. They're not making their payments on their land, and what the banks and the courts are doing is they're seizing that land and then auctioning them off. The farmers have tried to go to the government to say, hey, can we pay back in our crops? And the government has said no. They've gone to the government and say, hey, can you delay this until the spring when we sell our crops and we can then make our payments and pay off our debts and things like that? And the government has said no as well. The government has basically, instead of siding with the farmers, they've sided with the banks, and the banks are making a lot of money by seizing these farms and then reselling the land. So the farmers' idea, if we stop the courts from coming into sessions, then they can't do this. And for a while, that's exactly what's happening. I mean, you're a lawyer, you're a judge, and you show up and there's, dozens of angry armed farmers out front. You're probably not going to try to fight your way through to go to work that day. When does this happen? This is happening from 1786 to 1787. It starts kind of right at the end of harvest season, right around November, December, and is going to last into almost into the spring. So really it's going to be throughout the winter, which again for the farmers is one of their hardest times economically because they're not really selling their crops at this point. The harvest is done, they've already sold, they're kind of working off what they've made. Where is this happening? This is going to be happening in western Massachusetts, area of Springfield, kind of almost near the New York and Massachusetts border. The city of Springfield, which is the capital, or was the capital of Massachusetts back then, also had a armory which housed weapons that the farmers are going to try to seize. But it's going to be mostly western Massachusetts is where Shay's Rebellion is going to be located. All right, so why is this happening? This is happening for a variety of reasons, and really what it all comes down to is Shay's Rebellion kind of shows the issues of the Articles of Confederation, which is the big one we talked about today in class was economic issues of money. The government doesn't have any money. So the government doesn't have any money, which they cannot pay back many of the veterans who are now farmers. The farmers, in turn, cannot pay back their debts, the money that they've borrowed to plant their seed, to buy their land, etc. In order to get money, the Massachusetts government, because remember, the federal government can't do anything about this. The federal government is trying to go through and say, you know what, farmers are they're taxing, and farmers are believing that the government was taxing farmers too much. The banks were taking the farmers when farms when the farmers could not pay on their debts, and this is a big deal. So you get 1,200 former soldiers, most of them were former soldiers, led by a former soldier, and they're going across western Massachusetts and they're stopping these court sessions from happening. That seems like a big problem. State of Massachusetts cannot deal with this, so who do you think they call? They're going to call on the federal government. Only problem here, can the federal government actually do anything about Shay's Rebellion? Think about it for a second. They can't. They can only do something about Shay's Rebellion if they get the approval from 9 other states. Most of these states are in a similar situation as Massachusetts, and they're not going to pay for or send money to help one state when it doesn't benefit their state. Many states are only looking out for themselves. The second big thing that is coming off this, there is no Continental Army. There is no army that they can send in to kind of help this. So how does Shay's Rebellion get stopped? Shay's Rebellion gets stopped actually by rich folks in many of the states who actually raise the money to raise a militia to go against the farmers and kind of screw them up. The big issue is this shows that the federal government can't deal with 1,200 farmers in one state. How are they going to deal with Great Britain? How are they going to deal with France? How are they going to deal with Spain? How are they going to deal with all of these other countries who are much, much more powerful? And it is good to lead many to call for a change of government. All right, that's our flip lesson for the day. If you have any questions, always hit me up on Schoology by sending a message to me directly if it's something that only I can solve. If it's something that your classmates may be able to help you out on, why don't you post it right to the update page. Until tomorrow, see you guys.